The 16-year-old student collapsed during lunch break, his heart stopping right there on the cafeteria floor. But what none of the panicking teachers knew was that the quiet math teacher kneeling beside him had once performed under pressure in front of 50 million viewers. Isabella Rodriguez had traded her Olympic gold medals for algebra textbooks 3 years ago, but her champion instincts were about to save a life. Welcome to Stories Between Us. Before we begin this powerful story, please tell us in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button to help keep these stories alive. At Riverside High School in Millfield, Iowa, Isabella Rodriguez was known as the teacher who made calculus seem possible. At 28 years old, standing 5 feet 4 inches tall with dark brown hair, always pulled back in a simple bun, she wore modest cardigans and comfortable flats that allowed her to move quietly between student desks. Room 237 was her domain. Equations filled the whiteboard, and her patient voice guided struggling students through complex problems. She stayed after school for tutoring, arrived early to prepare lessons, and never seemed to get frustrated, no matter how many times she had to explain the same concept. Ms. Rodriguez makes math feel like a puzzle instead of punishment, Junior Sarah Chen often told her friends. But what her students didn't know was that Isabella's patience had been forged in a completely different arena. The calm demeanor that helped nervous students relax had once kept her steady while the entire world watched. Those quick reflexes that helped her catch falling textbooks had once propelled her to Olympic gold. 3 years ago, Isabella Rodriguez had been a different person entirely. Isabella "Bella" Rodriguez, 3-time Olympic gymnastics champion, had retired at the peak of her career to pursue something that felt more meaningful: teaching. Tuesday, March 21, 2025, started like any other day. Isabella was eating lunch in her classroom, grading papers, when she heard commotion from the cafeteria down the hall. "Help! Someone help!" The scream was filled with genuine terror. Isabella's head snapped up. That wasn't the usual teenage drama. That was real panic. She dropped her red pen and moved toward the door. Years of athletic training had given her an ability to assess situations quickly, and something in that voice told her someone was in serious trouble. As she reached the cafeteria entrance, she saw the crowd. Students were clustered around something on the floor, some crying, others pulling out phones to record. Teachers were trying to maintain order, but their voices carried uncertainty and fear. "Everyone back up! Give him space!" Mr. Peterson, the chemistry teacher, was shouting, but his voice shook. Isabella pushed through the crowd and saw him, Jake Miller, a quiet sophomore from her third-period class. He was lying on the linoleum floor, completely still, his face a frightening shade of blue. "Is he breathing?" someone shouted. "I don't know. Should we call 911? Someone already did. Isabella knelt beside Jake and immediately pressed her fingers to his neck, checking for a pulse. Nothing. She placed her ear near his mouth. No breath sounds. "He's in cardiac arrest," she announced calmly, her voice cutting through the chaos. The crowd fell silent. How could Ms. Rodriguez, the quiet math teacher, sound so certain about a medical emergency? What happened next shocked everyone who thought they knew Isabella Rodriguez. With fluid precision, she positioned Jake's head, tilted his chin, and began chest compressions. Her form was perfect, hands locked, arms straight, compressions deep and rhythmic. This wasn't someone who had learned CPR in a weekend course. This was someone who had trained for life-or-death pressure. 30 compressions, 2 breaths, she counted aloud, her voice steady as a metronome. Isabella's mind shifted into the zone she hadn't accessed in 3 years. It was the same mental space she'd entered before every Olympic routine, where time slowed down, external noise faded, and only the task mattered. At the Olympics, she had performed flawless routines while 50 million people watched, and judges scored every micro-movement. The pressure had been immense, but she had thrived in it. This was different pressure, life and death instead of gold medals. but her mind and body responded the same way. Total focus, perfect execution, champion-level performance when it mattered most. 27, 28, 29, 30, she continued, then moved to rescue breathing. Students stared in amazement. This was their quiet math teacher, but she moved with the precision and confidence of a professional athlete. "How does she know how to do that?" whispered Emma, one of Jake's classmates. Principal Johnson had arrived and was watching Isabella work. Something about her technique, her composure, her absolute confidence in a crisis triggered a memory. "Wait," he said quietly. "Isabella Rodriguez? Bella Rodriguez?" The name hung in the air. Several students gasped. "No way," breathed Sarah Chen. "The Olympic gymnast?" But Isabella was too focused to respond. She was on her second cycle of compressions, monitoring Jake's color, listening for any sign of returning life. "Come on, Jake," she murmured between compressions. "You're stronger than this." Then, after what felt like hours but had been only 2 minutes, Jake's chest moved on its own. A small gasp, then another. His eyelids fluttered. Isabella immediately checked his pulse, weak but present. She positioned him in the recovery position, just as the paramedics burst through the cafeteria doors. "We've got it from here," the lead paramedic said, but he looked impressed. "Excellent work. You kept him alive." As the paramedics loaded Jake onto a stretcher, the cafeteria buzzed with whispered conversations and smartphone searches. "Isabella Rodriguez Gymnast Olympics," students were typing frantically. The results were stunning. Photos of a younger Isabella in a sparkly leotard, arms raised in victory. Headlines: "Bella Rodriguez wins 3rd consecutive gold. The Queen of Gymnastics retires at peak." "Ms. Rodriguez," Sarah Chen approached hesitantly. "Is it true? Are you really? Were you really?" Isabella looked around at her students' faces, curious, amazed, some seeing her completely differently for the first time. "Yes," she said simply, "but that was a different life." "Why didn't you tell us?" asked Marcus, a senior who had struggled with calculus all semester. Isabella considered the question. "Because I wanted you to see me as your teacher, not as someone famous. I wanted to earn your respect through my teaching, not my trophies." Principal Johnson approached with a serious expression. "Isabella, we need to talk. The media is already calling. Someone posted video of the CPR on social media, and people are recognizing you." That evening, Isabella sat in her small apartment, looking at the 3 Olympic gold medals she kept in a simple wooden box. For 3 years, she had successfully lived a quiet, anonymous life as a teacher. Her phone had been ringing constantly. Sports reporters, local news, even her former coach, asking if she planned to return to competition, what had made her become a teacher, why she had hidden her identity. The truth was complicated. After her 3rd Olympic gold, Isabella had been exhausted by the pressure, the constant scrutiny, the way people saw her as a symbol rather than a person. She had loved gymnastics, but she had grown tired of being Bella Rodriguez, Olympic champion, instead of just Isabella. Teaching had given her something gymnastics never could, the quiet satisfaction of helping individual students succeed, of seeing the light in a teenager's eyes when they finally understood a difficult concept. The next day at school, Isabella walked into room 237 to find her students waiting with a new kind of respect in their eyes. "Ms. Rodriguez," Jake Miller was there, released from the hospital with a clean bill of health. "I wanted to thank you. The doctors said you saved my life." "You're welcome, Jake. How are you feeling?" "Better, but I have to ask, were you scared when you were doing CPR?" Isabella thought about it. Number. When you train at the highest level, you learn to trust your preparation. In gymnastics, I practiced routines thousands of times so that when I competed, my body knew what to do even when my mind was overwhelmed. CPR training works the same way. Sarah Chen raised her hand. "Ms. Rodriguez, can I ask why you became a teacher instead of staying in gymnastics?" "Because," Isabella said, moving to the whiteboard, Winning gold medals was about being the best in the world for a few minutes. But teaching is about helping you become the best version of yourselves for the rest of your lives. She turned to face her students. And yesterday, all that Olympic training helped me save Jake's life. Sometimes our past experiences prepare us for moments we never expected. By that afternoon, the story had gone viral. Olympic champion turned teacher saves student's life was trending across social media platforms. News crews arrived at Riverside High School. Isabella reluctantly agreed to one interview with the local station. Many people are surprised that an Olympic champion chose to become a high school teacher, the reporter said. What would you say to them? Isabella smiled. I'd say that champions aren't defined by their medals. They're defined by how they use their talents to help others. Yesterday, my athletic training helped me save a student's life. Tomorrow, my teaching will help another student solve a calculus problem that seemed impossible. Both matter. Do you miss competing? I miss parts of it, but I've found something more fulfilling. When Jake Miller graduates and goes to college, when Sarah Chen becomes an engineer, when Marcus finally masters calculus, those victories mean more to me than any medal. A week later, Jake Miller returned to Isabella's calculus class. His cardiac episode had been caused by an undiagnosed heart condition that was now being treated. Ms. Rodriguez, he said after class, I've been thinking about what happened. You could have let someone else handle it. You could have waited for the paramedics. But I had the training to help immediately, Isabella replied. When you have the ability to help someone, you use it. Is that why you became a teacher? To help people? Isabella smiled. Partly, but also because I discovered something amazing. Helping others achieve their goals is even more satisfying than achieving your own. That afternoon, as Isabella erased equations from the whiteboard and prepared to leave, she reflected on her decision 3 years ago to leave the spotlight. The Olympic medals in her apartment were gathering dust, but every day in room 237 she was winning something more valuable, the chance to change young lives. Isabella Rodriguez still teaches AP Calculus at Riverside High School. Her students now know about her Olympic past, but they respect her even more for choosing to be their teacher. Jake Miller fully recovered and is now considering a career in emergency medicine, inspired by how Isabella's quick thinking saved his life. Sometimes being a champion isn't about standing on a podium while the world watches. Sometimes it's about kneeling on a cafeteria floor, fighting for a student's life while nobody's keeping score. The real gold medal is knowing that when it mattered most, all that training, athletic and academic, came together to save a life and inspire a new generation. Do you think there are champions hiding in everyday jobs all around us? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story inspired you, like and subscribe, because stories like this remind us that heroes come in many forms. With love from Stories Between Us.